Welcome to Psychic Social, brought to you by psychic.co.uk.
On this episode of Psychic Social,
I teach people how to connect into the energy of the chakras. I teach people how to connect to their spirit guides. I teach how to read other people's auras.
welcome to Psychic Social with me, Oliver Duke, the podcast that explores all things from the psychic and spiritual perspectives, including interviews with famous psychic practitioners, discussions about the afterlife, the paranormal, and much more. So relax and enjoy the show. Now, today's guest has over 20 years' experience in the psychic industry as a psychic medium, clinical hypnotherapist, crystal healer, and past life regressionist. Over the years, she has amassed valuable skills to assist her clients in the best way possible in their present life circumstances. As well as being a medium, she specializes in crystal healing, past life regression, hypnotherapy, and inner child therapy. She also currently runs extremely successful psychic retreats in 2 destinations abroad and has been featured in The Guardian, The Tate, Vogue, and The Independent, to name but a few. She's also been the go-to psychic for the UK radio station LBC. Our guest today is Kim Alexis. Hi Kim, welcome to Psychic Social. How are you today?
I'm fine, Oliver. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be speaking with you today.
Absolute pleasure to have you on here. What have you been up to today?
I have been out for lunch. It's my way of balancing what I do and just hanging out with girlfriends and eating food because I love food. I'm a foodie.
Don't we all love food? Yes. Lovely. Sounds great. So what are your kind of plans for 2020? Have you got anything excited lined up in the pipeline?
Yeah, I have actually. There's a possible retreat in Hungary, of all places, that I'm going to be shown around the country and having a look at these beautiful lakes there and castles and mountains. So that's a possible. I'm also possibly flying to Sedona in Arizona.
Right.
Sedona is a very well-known healing place because it's an energy vortex. There's loads of healers there and psychics, and so I'm going to be doing some healing there. And then more than likely my own retreat in Sardinia, which is a psychic development and well-being retreat in a very kind of isolated, beautiful rural place on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm not doing that, also just the usual, which is giving psychic, mediumistic readings and crystal healings and hypnotherapy and for all sorts of things, fears, phobias, anxiety, confidence, and past life regression as well, which is a very interesting topic to be working with.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like you've got an awful lot going on in 2020 then.
Yeah, it's looking good. So I'm excited about it. Yeah,
great.
I think it's going to be a good year for a lot of people. I think 2020 is just a high energy.
Right, because I've been told that this is potentially the year of balance. Is that right in 2020?
Yeah, I think it's about letting go of stuff and
starting afresh.
Yes. Cutting ties, unfinished business and that kind of thing, and letting stuff go and starting over. But then I think that is with any new year as well. We want to be letting go of the smoking and stopping the drinking, getting fit, the usual stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, I don't know, for some reason 2020 feels like it's a newer energy or a more powerful energy, let's put it like that.
Right, great. Well, we're very much looking forward to 2020, as I'm sure you are. That sounds great. So let's go straight into our question 1 here. So I'm going to ask you to take us back to the beginning. And how did you become a psychic? Was it passed down from a family member, or was the gift with you from an early age, or how did it happen for you?
I'd love to say yes, my grandmother and her mother before her and her mother before her, but unfortunately, no. nobody in my family, that's my other sibling being my brother, and mother and father were never involved in anything like what I do. So no, I didn't feel that I was one of those people at a young age that spoke to, invisible children that others couldn't see and all that kind of thing. I really, I guess I started it may have been there and I wasn't just aware of it, but I guess I started quite in my 20s actually. I was always reading books on the esoteric and Tibetan monks, and I always had a few crystals laying around, and I'd always kind of play around with the tarot cards but never really understood them, and was always having to read up in books what they really meant. So I always had kind of this interest in my 20s. But then I went in hospital, and I was reading a book on Tibet, and I read that there was an earthquake, and I was feeling tired. I put the book down and I switched on the radio, and there was a news flash to say that there'd been a huge earthquake in San Francisco. And I looked in my book thinking, no, I just read that. But of course, it wasn't in the pages. It wasn't there. So I'd already had a premonition of what had happened. And that was kind of like my first kind of query is, that's interesting.
It's amazing. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just, other little things started to crop up. I, got this message that my mother wasn't well and she wasn't going to live very long. And I thought, Kim, that's just a horrible thing to think. What a horrible thought. And actually within a couple of months she had died. So, things like that started to happen. And I had some very out-of-body experiences, which were absolutely stunningly beautiful, light everywhere and this profound love coming through. So things just started to happen with me.
Was that in a dream? Sorry to interrupt you, but was that in a dream state, or was that an awakened experience?
Well, I was laying in bed at the time, but I was awake.
Right.
And I felt like I was just transported out of my body into this huge, beautiful white light and taken up and up and up and up. And I did feel like there were light beings there that felt angelic. But I'll never forget it because it's never happened since. It was a one-off experience like that. So the colours were just incredible, nothing like what we know here. So, that was an amazing experience. And it wasn't something I intended. It just happened. And then, and a lot of these experiences happened when I was living abroad because I left when I was 17. And I was selling crystals in Morocco when I didn't even know they were crystals. They were just semi-precious stones that I used to have to sell to the tourists and try to sit outside on these like Persian rugs and entice the tourists into this jewellery shop. And it's funny that, years later, I'm then a crystal healer. So, life had a funny way of kind of keeping me involved with the crystals, even when I didn't really know anything about them back then. And then I came back to England and somebody mentioned to me, and it was a neighbour actually who knew I was interested in all the spiritual stuff. And she said, had I been to a spiritualist church? And I was like, no, what's that? And I went off to the spiritualist church, saw a medium on the platform, and I instantly I was like, I want to do that.
Right.
I can do that.
Yeah. Okay.
And it kind of went from there, really. I went into a circle, and literally within about 3 weeks, I was hearing, seeing, telling people about their lives. I was a natural.
So it kind of awakened your talent or what you had inside you. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me wind back a little bit there to what you were saying about the crystals, because my next question was to you. I saw from your website that you do a lot of crystal healing. Can you tell us about that and your experiences with that over the years?
Yeah. I really studied the crystals because I just had a thirst to understand about them. And when I was doing it, I I felt it was really important, where other people in the class or on the courses, it was just a sort of hobby. Whereas for me, it's like, no, I must learn this. There was just something really so important to me about it. And so I went on to become a crystal healer. And I love the crystals because they amplify the healing. And you choose specific crystals that it's a bit like having a prescription, a personal prescription. The person tells you what's going on with them, mentally, emotionally, physically, and you can choose the crystals that will assist with those problems. I've had people come in bent over with, back, spine problems, and there's a crystal which is called selenite. And fishtail selenite, and it actually looks like a spine with little bones going across it, like a fish, with its bones.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had people come in, that can't move, and then do a crystal healing, and they get up and they go, it's gone. I can't feel anything, and they start moving around trying to feel it. And I say, whatever you do, don't look for it. Don't try and bring it back. It's gone. So,
wow,
things like that, yeah. I had another woman who I put some crystals on her around the womb and fallopian tubes and this kind of thing. She'd been trying to get a, what do you call it? When she wanted to have a freeze her eggs. So, and what had happened through that process, she had got cysts on her ovaries. So put crystals on her, did the crystal healing. Throughout the crystal healing, she was going, ouch, ouch, ouch. And I thought, this is strange. Nobody's ever done that before. It's never been painful before. Anyway, also what came up was there was some anger with these ovaries that were part of the cysts, and that had been due to a relationship breakup. So did the healing. She went off, emailed me about 3 weeks later, and she said, I've had a scan. She said, all the cysts are gone, and I'm now able to go through the process and freeze my eggs.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you actually touch the person with the crystals, or is it raised just above the body, or how does that work?
I put crystals around the body and on the chakra points, so
right.
The base, sacral, solar plexus, heart, throat, third eye, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And then my guides come in, my healing guides come in. I have even been told to move out the way by my guides, and just they're going to do it, and I'm like, oh, okay, all right.
So you have guides present during the crystal healing, so you would summon them and they would tell. What do they tell you in terms of the healing process? How do they guide you through that?
If I'm honest, they don't often tell me much. That's much more for when I do my readings. When I do the healings, it's more of me picking up what I feel has caused the issue. So, if somebody's got stomach problems, that can be because there's been anxiety and hurt, or in being bullied, and this is the manifestation of why they've got this issue with the stomach. So they don't tend to tell me an awful lot. Just very occasionally that will happen when, like I said, they'll say move out the way, or they will tell me something. But I generally kind of go into my own space with that and just do the healing without doing too much of a reading as such. So, it's more of a sensing the energies, feeling the energies, and removing energy as well. I remove a lot of negativity out from the physical and out of the aura. So I'm not just doing healing, I am actually doing removing the energies, as well as I do a lot of what we call spirit release.
Right.
So removing, sometimes we've got attachments, spirit attachment that bit like, hitchhikers. They just hook onto us and they don't really belong with us. So I do that, but I don't always tell the clients I'm doing that, because that would obviously freak some clients out. They're not of that understanding. It's a bit too much of a, oh my God, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. So I tend to just get on and do that as a natural part of my healing process, really.
Okay, and how many sort of crystals do you use? Are there lots of different types? Is there one or two that you use? You've got favourites? How does it work?
Yeah, I have to admit I have got favourites, but I've got a room full of crystals. People come in and they go, oh wow. And they're all kind of in sections they've got the yellow crystals, I've got the orange crystals in a pile, the green ones in a pile, the black ones in a pile. So I use all sorts. And when I was buying them years and years ago, they were absolutely, they were so cheap. But now you can't pick up the kind of crystals that I used to buy many years ago. They cost so much more now. But I have got favourites. I guess the quartzes, because they're the master healer. You can heal anything with the quartz points. Rose quartz, of course, because it's the nurture, it's the loving energy. I like the malachite because it's got copper in it and it helps with anything to do with bones, as well as there's another one that I like, the blue, can't think what it's called. That's the other thing that happens. People say to me, what's this called? And I go, I can't remember. But they've all got different qualities and they all do different things. So they're a bit like having little friends, really.
Okay.
With their own personalities.
I see.
There's certain crystals that don't like working with other crystals, and some that love working with other crystals. So it's a bit like that, really.
Right. Okay. Well, that's all fascinating stuff. That's going to move us nicely into a break now. So we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and talk some more with Kim Alexis right after these. So don't go away.
This is Psychic Social, where the world's best psychics tell you their story.
Hi there, hope you're enjoying the show today. I wanted to tell you about QR Tarot. Now, this is a revolutionary deck. This is an absolute game-changing way to learn the tarot. And we've made this tarot deck in conjunction with Nikki Allen, Psychic Medium, and Victoria, Psychic Intuitive. And this deck has QR codes on the back of all 78 cards. So it's got 2 QR codes, and you scan 1 for upright and 2 for reversed. So once you scan the upright code, just take your phone out, get the camera on your phone and scan it, and it will take you directly to a video of Nikki Allen describing you the upright definition of that card. And then if you scan the reverse definition, it'll take you to another video of Victoria discussing and describing that reverse definition of that particular card. And that is the same for all 78 cards in this classic QR Tarot deck. And it's based on the classic 78 card deck with the illustrations by Pamela Coleman Smith, the one that everyone knows and loves. So all you have to do is literally, it's that simple. Scan it, and it's one fantastic, revolutionary learning experience that we're so proud to have launched with Nikki and Victoria. And in the cards, you'll get the booklet as well, which will give you a QR code on each card in the deck as well. So another 78 QR codes, and you scan that, and that will take you to an even deeper dive, much more information about that tarot card. And also what we're throwing in is a free version of our taster course that comes with the cards when you buy them. So all you have to do is follow the instructions in the booklet and the cards when you get them, and you can register for your free version of our taster course. And then we also have got a fantastic deal on the main course of 10-Hour Tarot, and you can find out there what sort of discount you're going to get when you buy the cards. So you can get the cards right now. They're available at psychic.co.uk/QR Tarot, and we'll put the link in the description below. They are on amazon.co.uk and Amazon USA, so amazon.com. And you can buy those cards through the website. That'll take you to your relevant Amazon site. And you can also go to Amazon as well, search QR Tarot. So if you head there, you can get yourself a deck right now. Okay, right, now back to the show.
This is Psychic Social, the spiritual home of psychics.
Welcome back to part 2 of Psychic Social and our chat with Kim Alexis. Now, we were talking about crystal healing before the break. I'm now going to ask Kim about another thing that she's got a lot of experience with, and that's past life regression. So Kim, I wanted to know from you, tell us all about your experiences with past life regression and how does it work?
Well, for me, past life regression is a good way to find out what is causing perhaps a current life issue. So, for example, I had a lady who had a fear of water, and I did the usual hypnotherapy to try to find the root cause of why that had come from, but couldn't really figure it out. So I took her into a past life, and it turned out that in the past she had fallen down a well as a child, and she had survived that. In the past life, the father had managed to get her out, but she'd obviously brought that fear over into the current life. So we healed that, and once she no longer was carrying that energy, that memory, that vibration, she took up swimming lessons. And she'd actually been a bit of a drinker, and she stopped drinking, and she actually got out of her relationship, which had not been particularly good, been a bit of a toxic relationship. So it completely changed her life.
Wow.
So the way past life regression works is fascinating, and it's just really taking the person back, putting them into a hypnotic state, taking them back, and then I am asking them, what do they see, what do they feel? There's techniques to obviously get them to say what they're feeling and seeing. So it's really all about what they are experiencing. And there can be unfinished business. There can be cords connected to people that, you know, they no longer need to be corded to. Old war wounds, you know, that they may have had. You know, they may always have a problem in this life with their legs, and it turns out that, you know, they were in a war and had their legs blown off. You know,
wow.
There's been people who have a fear of flying, and it's because they were a pilot in the war, and their plane got hit and came down. So it's a really fascinating, and it's really interesting to see what comes up, and how that can then allow the person in this life to just have that sense of harmony, really, and balance back in themselves.
Sure. I mean, how many sort of, kind of on average, I mean, I suppose you can't really tell, but when you're doing these past life regressions with these people, how many past lives come up? Is it one or two or several? How does that happen?
Well, yes, it can be several, but one or two I tend to deal with at the most, because, you know, there is a time issue.
Yeah, sure.
It can be there. You can go on and on for hours, really. Mm-hmm. But I try to do one or two, because you want to then get to the resolving stage. You know, what decisions did they make in that lifetime? What vows did they have in that lifetime? You know, what assumptions did they make in that lifetime? And to be able to go through that and heal, you know, the healing process. So if you just jump from life to life to life, then it's very hard to actually go in depth to heal the issues. Mm-hmm. So I like to do one or two lives within one session, and obviously people can come back if they want to discover more. But yeah, that's really how it works.
And how long does it take on average in a session to sort of regress someone?
A couple of hours, 2 hours.
Wow, that's a long time, isn't it?
Yeah. It's mainly me getting the person into that very relaxed state, and then, as I mentioned, and then it's all about, you know, and I'm doing all the talking, and then it's all about them doing all the talking as to what they feel, what they see, what they're hearing. Yeah.
Okay. Have you had any sort of funny or hilarious stories during regressions at all that you can remember over the years that stood out to you, or anything that made you laugh?
Not in regression, but more in when I've been doing readings.
Right. Okay. Well, tell us about that then. Have you got anything funny to tell us about any readings that you've done in the past?
Yeah. I don't do it anymore, but I used to stand on the platform and give messages to the audience. And
right.
There was one lady that came through. She was, I think it was like a grandmother who was talking to her daughter in the audience. And I remember at the time saying, "No, I can't say that." And it turns out that grandmother, I had to say, your grandmother was the one that always came to church with no knickers on. She went, "Yeah, that's right." Definite evidence.
That is funny. Okay, right. Well, moving on to my next question for you. We wanted to know a bit more about your psychic retreats. We've seen a little bit about it on your website. What's involved in those, and what can people look forward to learning from these? And you mentioned a location earlier, some new locations potentially this year. What are the current locations that you kind of offer to these people?
Well, mainly it's Sardinia in Italy. The ones I mentioned at the beginning of the show, that's all up in the air at the moment, right, with Hungary. So I'm just going to see how that kind of rolls on. Mm-hmm. But on the Sardinia retreat, it's the most beautiful place. The water is just, it's clear and blue, and it's just stunning.
I can imagine, beautiful.
Yeah, and I teach on this terrace kind of overlooking the trees and the sea, and it's lovely. So what I teach is how to develop your psychic ability, your intuition, to grow your psychic muscles, really, because we can all do it. People say, "Oh, you're gifted," and I don't really like that word. I don't think that it is a gift. I think that it's just innate within all of us. We can all do it. We all have intuition, and it's about honing those skills. So, and obviously, yes, there are going to be some people who are better than others, the same as there are better pianists than others or better sports people than others. But I teach people how to connect into the energy of the chakras. I teach people how to connect to their spirit guides. I teach how to read other people's auras. I teach how to connect to loved ones who have passed over. I do some teaching around the crystals. I do some past life work there as well, and some inner child work, which I find really rewarding, and I love to do, because we've all got those beliefs and wounds from our childhood in one way or another that we're carrying. And so I like to do some inner child work to get people to really think about some of the stuff that they don't need to believe anymore about themselves. So it's all about self-love, self-worth, self-confidence. And the stronger you feel in yourself, the greater trust you can have to know that there are spirit, angels, guides, and loved ones there around you who are always assisting you. So the more connected you are, and the more meditation you do, the stronger, it's an inside job, basically. The stronger you get inside, the better of a connector you can be.
So you're saying that potentially everyone could at some point be able to tap into a spirit guide or guides. Everyone has that ability in them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I believe that, yes, without doubt, because what are we? We are spirit. There's that very common saying, we're I can't even think of it now. Human, having a human spirit, having a human experience.
Yeah, I've heard that before. Yeah.
And so we are spirit, but we're incarnate. We're in these bodies.
In a physical body, yeah.
Yeah. And what is that which we connect to outside of us is spirit, just without the body. You know, these bodies are just like old raincoats.
That vessels, yeah.
That get worn out, and we take them off, and what's left? We are spirit.
We're all energy, just energy. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's not a gift. We can all do it. It's just we can all do different levels of it. Some people might only see colours in a person. Some people can, you know, can be clairvoyant and see lots of visions. Some people are clairaudient and hear spirit. And some people are very clairsentient, so they just have the feelings and the knowings. I personally am very clairaudient, so I hear word for word, and I just relay those messages to clients when I'm receiving information from a loved one or from a spirit guide.
How many guides do you have? Have you got one or several? Or
I've got a few.
Right.
And guides come in and out of our lives when, you know, as we're evolving. It's a bit like being in school. You know, we have different teachers as we move along the way, as we move up and up and up with new knowledge, new wisdom, new understanding. We do have guides that are with us from birth and stay with us, but we can have new guides come in. And sometimes those guides can be very naive as well. You know, they can be learning as we're learning. They're not always the wise, you know, old man with the long white beard and the scrolls, or the Native American Indians. You know, they might be a very young boy, Native American Indian, for example, that are learning with us. And like attracts like. So, you know, is that when I do my readings, I get a lot of lyrics from songs because I love music, and I used to work in the music business as well. So, you know, sometimes I might have someone. I had a woman, in fact, in front of me, and she was quite skeptical, and she didn't say a word. Well, I tell people not to speak anyway, but she was very kind of quite stern-faced. And I just got this Engelbert Humperdinck song, and I started singing it to her, and she went, "Oh my God!" My husband's favourite song, and her husband had passed over, and so that for her was like, she was, you know, her face lit up. She was like a completely different person. So I often get song lyrics with my readings, and I also get languages. You know, I can hear how they're speaking to me when they come out, when the spirit loved ones come over, you know, with Indian accents and Polish accents, and because I like languages. So spirit will work with what you've got. Spirit will work with what you like. And spirit are also, they're much more helpful to us over there as well. You know, if you had a grandfather who smoked a pipe and sat in front of the TV, or, you know, reading the newspaper, he's a lot more useful now when he's in spirit than he was here. Because now he can put you at the right place at the right time, connect you with the right people, help you out. So they can be a lot more useful to us. No less loving, of course, but more useful, helping us along our path. Sure.
Well, I also wanted to move on and ask you, with all the experience that you've got over the years, the last 2 decades plus, what are your thoughts and feelings about the afterlife and what happens after we leave this earth?
Well, I believe that, you know, like I said, we're just spirit. So we leave the physical body behind. We are always greeted by our loved ones. Actually, I've got a really nice story about my father. It's a bit long-winded, so I'll just make it short. But when he passed, and he didn't believe in any of this really, I actually got him to see his father and to see his friends in spirit, and to lead him through the light so that he could be greeted by them and taken by them. And he was going, oh, you know, because he didn't know where he was at first.
Yeah.
He was really confused about it. And then I told him to look up to the light, and, you know, you're going to see your dad and mum. And anyway, and he went off and out, and he kind of went out of me. I kind of do this long kind of breathing where I kind of release spirit. and he went off and out, and he's come back many times through different mediums. They've said, oh, your father's standing with you. So I believe that we get greeted by our loved ones. I believe that we kind of go through a resting period for us to get used to being in this new energy. And I also believe about the kind of the halls of the Akashic records, where we get to see the things we've done or could have done or should have done, not in a sinful way. There's no such thing as hell. There is only one plane of energy, of which is like heavenly. But I think we get to see some of the things that we've lived through life. And I think that we then get a choice to come back and relive some of the things maybe we could have done differently. I believe in soul groups, so we come back and we stay in the same soul group, the same people that we've known before, but we may come back as, for example, my father was my father. He may come back as a son or a mother, in future lives.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, not just past lives, but future lives too.
That's very interesting to hear your take on it. Thank you very much. Well, we're sort of coming towards the end of the show now, but I've got one last question for you, which is not psychic related at all. It is, I just want to know what the last book you read was, or what was the last box set you watched? Anything interesting there at all?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a self-help. Any books I read, they do tend to be in the self-help field. I'm reading the Tao Te Ching, or the Tao Made Easy rather, by Alan Cohen. It's just a really lovely book. It's like the Chinese master and his student, and how he teaches him these little stories of wisdom and compassion or kindness, or how to see things differently. So it's very sweet. And the other book is, if I can remember the title, Why Men Don't Love, or something like that.
Right, okay. Not true for all men, I'll have to say.
No, and it's not an issue I have either.
Right, okay.
It's a book that a friend was reading, and it was more to do with some of the work that I do,
right,
from a psychotherapeutic point of view.
Okay.
So more about men that aren't unavailable men,
right, emotionally
unavailable.
I see. Right. Okay.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
So yeah, those are the kind of books I read when I get a chance.
Right. And you do you watch much telly? What stream?
No,
not much.
I don't watch TV, but I do love Netflix. I do love a good movie.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the last movie I saw was Knives Out, which was at the cinema. I saw it on Christmas Day with my brother.
Oh, cool. Christmas Day movie. Nice.
Yeah, so yes, because the cinemas are open on Christmas Day.
I didn't know that. I never knew that.
In central London.
Right, okay.
They are. So Knives Out, and it was a really fun, great twist on an Agatha Christie movie.
Right, I'm going to have to check that out now. Thank you very much for that one. Well, it's been fantastic to have you on the show today on Psychic Social, Kim. I think we're about out of time at the moment, but before we let you go, can you tell people what's the best way to get in contact with you? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is kimalexispsychic.co.uk. All the information's on there. And you can connect with me, Kim Alexis Psychic, on Insta and Facebook, and
your the stuff you've got on your website, the psychic retreats, all the details about that is on there as well. If people are interested in that. Yes,
yeah. There are details yet to come up. What's that saying? TBC, to be confirmed.
TBC, right, excellent. Well, like I say, it's been fantastic to have you on the show. Thank you very much for joining us today, Kim.
Thank
you. Hopefully we can catch up with you again soon for a part 2 or something. That'd be great.
That'd be lovely. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
All right, thank you very much then, Kim. Take care now.
You too.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on Psychic Social from psychic.co.uk, the spiritual home of psychics.